Ahoy, and welcome in to another mind expanding episode of Not Allowed to Die, your podcast about mental health, where I, Dan Magler, social worker and life enthusiast, pull back the curtain on how mental health treatment actually works. And sometimes I have exciting guests to share their perspectives and ideas. Alongside me, as always, is Mariska, the three-toothed Patterdale Terrier. And she is licking her paws in the background, and we all know what that means. When Mariska is licking her paws, it means she's a little bit distressed because we could be doing a better job of rating and reviewing the podcast. And Mariska really extra loves it if when you rate and review, if you write a few sentences and lines. And if you do that, email us at dmaiglerlcsw@gmail.com, and perhaps I'll read it on the podcast. Now, Mariska's extra excited today because you know she loves it when we have a guest. And this guest is someone who's aligned with Mariska's values, which that dogs are incredibly important. So I'm very excited to welcome Mike Overlie. Mike is a canine partnered men's coach, energy healer, author, and founder of the nonprofit SaveTwo.org. He guides men through their healing journeys, utilizing their amazing teachers, their dogs. His own experiences and life lessons allow him to provide valuable insights into how we can help ourselves heal. So, Mike, we are so excited to have you today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited about this.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to doing this work?
Oh, God. It was a lifetime of experiences and missed opportunities, I think is a good way to put it. Um, the first big event in my life where a dog helped me in such a massive way was when my father left our family. And I was like 11, 12 years old. And I started having suicidal ideation. I somehow blamed myself for this event. Like I was such a disappointment that he would leave. And so I started trying to figure out a way to alleviate everybody else's pain for causing this rift. And I had this amazing dog. He would just seek me out in my deeper, darker moments and do whatever he needed to do to just be with me. He wasn't trying to just cheer me up and, hey, let's go do something fun. He would come and lean against me, hold space for me. And that's something I had never experienced before. And he kept me going and helped me see that I was actually okay and we were going to be okay. And, keep going many decades and dogs later. And I had another event in my life that was just destroying for me. My older brother passed away back in 2017, and this guy was my hero. Mm. And what came from that was this awareness and this knowledge of who I was and how I was actually showing up in the world. And I didn't like that guy. He was still so angry and so, just rage and still depression in there. I mean, all these things that I thought I had handled. And this other dog I had, Darby, he showed me something else, right? And he's like, no, he's like, we got this, man. Come on, let's go. You be in this, sit in this, feel it, let all of it come. And then let's go from there. And it was from that place, I was like, oh, I can be different. I can do something different. And I can, I started doing my own healing and realized I can help others learn some of this too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think of you saying that part about this 11-year-old you. And so often I was talking to one of my clients yesterday who's going through divorce. And, people will say, well, the kids are just fine. They're handling it. And just because kids aren't saying, hey, I'm not fine, I need help, it doesn't mean that they're okay. And the tendency for children to internalize that I am the problem, I am the issue of something wrong. And to have that dog, that animal in your life that gives you nothing but unconditional love, that is there for you and that you are a benefit to them. We can start to immediately see. And at that point later in your life, after dealing with the death of your brother, when dealing with a death, we can feel so hopeless and we can feel so powerless. And this animal who is relying on you, but is also carrying you at the same time, I can imagine the power that brought with it.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it to this day, what happened. It was like I was shown something else that we always have access to, but we just don't remember how to get into, right? We knew it as kids, as little kids. We knew how to access this place. It's joy, it's love, it's true acceptance, no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know how to give that to ourselves, let alone other people. We're so judgy. We usually judge ourselves more than others, but yeah, it's just this beautiful place. And every once in a while I can tap back into that. And that's my goal, is to help others see this as well.
So I don't know if you remember those old commercials for Reese's where there's one person walking with the chocolate and the other person has the peanut butter and they bump into each other and then boom. But what they don't show is how did that person who's got the chocolate and the peanut butter actually start getting it manufactured? Do you remember the first conversation that you had with someone saying, "Hey, I think that I've got something here with dogs and healing and people." And how did that person react? Did you get encouragement right away to saying, "Yeah, you should go do this," or were people like, "I don't know," like, so how did people respond to you when you're like, "Hey, dogs and healing, this is the way to move people forward."
So the first conversation was like, "Huh? Are you nuts?" Right? And this is a kind of high level coach that I appreciate and enjoy. A guy who's done some amazing things, but it didn't click for him. He
Mhm,
he had no resonance around it. He was like, "What?" He's like, "I have a dog, but it's not that." So it's a different type of relationship. There's some people who have this deeper bond with their animals,
mhm,
and it's for a reason, right?
mhm,
There's this other thing that they're able to get from their animal that they can't get from the other relationships in their lives. So I had another conversation with a guy not long after that, and he thought I was a dog trainer, and I'm
mm,
like, well, no, I'm not really a dog trainer. I said I work with dogs, but that's not my job. And so he lived local to me, and I said, well, yeah, let's get together. No charge. Let's just get together and chat. And within an hour, this poor guy he's bawling, right? He's crying because understanding what the behaviors of his dog around him specifically,
mhm,
he was able to realize where he was maybe showing up short and not showing up as his whole self and all the things that he had going on.
mhm.
And he's crying, and he sits up and he looks at me and he goes, "There's nothing wrong with my dog, is there?" I said, "No, your dog's fine. She's trying to help you." And it was that moment I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so freaking powerful. This is just amazing." Obviously someone has to be willing to go there and get into that stuff, but the potential for the right individuals is just remarkable.
Well, and for men in particular, it can be so hard for men to open up and talk about their feelings and emotions. When I have a new student in my office, the first thing I do is a genogram where I ask people about their family makeup and whatnot. And often they're very guarded until I ask them about their pets. And once they start to ask them about their pets, even talking about their pets breaks down a wall in people. So I can only imagine that when you are out with a guy and the dog is there too, I'm wondering, does it help the conversation that they can kind of be scratching their dog or focusing partially on the dog while they're talking to you? How does that look? So take me through like what a kind of a session looks like when you're out with a client.
Yeah, my favorite is actually when we're not in a building, when we're
Mm,
out in nature walking and we can sit next to the river. I live in a beautiful place, Fort Collins, Colorado, and there's all sorts of amazing places to go. So, we start off the conversation light, you
mhm,
know, what are you looking for today? What do you think is going to help you heal today? And then inevitably we can get into something really hard. Having that dog right there, just maybe it's just the contact, maybe you don't even have to be petting, just that proximity to someone that you already know, love, and trust with your feelings.
mhm,
i, I can't think of anything more powerful than that. So it's like having a buddy who is going to do anything for you. You
mhm.
can trust them with anything at all. They're going to keep you safe. That allows this man to open up just a tiny bit more, and maybe just a little more, and then maybe just a little more. So it's soothing, right? I think a lot of us understand the physiological effects of having a dog. And when we pet them, our heart rate decreases, blood pressure decreases, cortisol goes down, all these things, our respiratory rate drops. So that takes the anxiety out and it takes the tension level down. And it creates this greater opening for someone to share.
So when people are like, referring to you, like let's say a friend is like, "Hey, you got to meet Mike. He will help you." Is it more people who are like that first guy you talked about? He thought he was having a problem with his dog when really the problem was for him internally, or is it more people who know? No, I know I need some coaching. I know I want to make some changes in my life, but I think I would have an easier time doing it if my dog was alongside me in the process. Or is it a mixture of how people are getting referred to you?
It's a mix. I mean, I get guys who are, almost destitute on the streets, as well as guys who are really high performing, but they have something goes click and they go, huh, really? I wonder. And that's kind of how the conversation starts. It's curiosity is such an amazing and powerful thing. And if it doesn't resonate with someone, then it doesn't resonate, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Hopefully they'll find something else that'll work for them. But it's this complete mix of people. A retired Ranger sniper, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, big business guys, other coaches. Um, it's fascinating.
So, like with any coaching, step one is figuring out what are the goals of that client. And then saying, okay, how are we incorporating this through the nexus of the dog that's also here, and in incorporating and looking at the dog's behavior and looking at how we're interacting, and then also where taking the conversation wherever it goes. Is that kind of how it operates?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's something that feels a little meaty that they may not be willing to go to right away, I might poke, prod a little
Hmm.
bit,
Hmm.
but not force. Right?
Hmm.
I don't want to force anything. But it's like, this seems really sticky for you. Let's get into that nasty bit a little more. And I found that sharing um, my own tribulations, trials,
Hmm.
helps a lot. So in one of my books, I wrote about the power of vulnerability and how it's
Hmm.
actually a superpower.
Hmm.
It's not this, sign of weakness. It's
Hmm.
exactly the opposite. But we've been raised to not believe that.
I don't know if you ever listened to Brene Brown had a podcast, and it was called Unlocking Us. And the question she would always ask everyone is, vulnerability is, complete that sentence. And I always had this fantasy, if I ever got to go on the show, my answer would be, vulnerability is the prerequisite to intimacy, that we can't have intimacy until we have vulnerability. Because that's what is vulnerability but taking down our armor. And again, that's that thing with a dog. They don't care about your job title. They don't care how handsome anybody else thinks you are. They don't care about any of these things. They cut through all the bullshit because it's really only about that intimacy. There is nothing but the intimacy of that relationship. Is that what you feel like you're able to build off of and teach people how to have intimacy in their human relationships by you working from the dog?
Absolutely. And I'm like tingling as you said that. So the depth of this bond for some guys is way beyond anything they have with other people, other, family members, mothers,
Mhm.
fathers, brothers, sisters, whatever it is, even their spouse at times,
Mhm.
because there's this immediate acceptance and allowing of whoever they are, however they are in that moment. So the dog brings us back to presence where right now everything's fine, everything's good, everything's safe. It's I don't know. It's like magic. So learning more about that and that relationship and understanding that bond between that man and that dog, we work on translating some of those lessons and skills and taking them, one tiny 1 degree shift at a time into another relationship. How does this going to work for you? What do you actually want from this? And, is this a boundary you need to set, or you don't even want this person in your life?
Mhm.
What is this about for you? But those lessons are always there. So we need to get the guy to pay more attention, you know, intimate attention actually, to the dog and what they're doing and how they're feeling in a moment. Because we were never taught to feel. We usually bottle everything up. Oh, that's I don't want to deal with
Mhm.
it. No, bring it. So I have my program uses the DOG method,
Okay.
right? It's discover, observe, and give. So you discover what's going on and what is that? And you don't have to define it, but you feel it. Then you observe it and you have to be with it and sit with it. Like, God, is this that's kind of in my gut. It does this, and maybe it reminds you of something. And then the next step is give it whatever it needs. Maybe you need some space. Maybe you need some time. Maybe you need something to eat. Maybe but just creating that awareness and not bottling something up and throwing it away.
Well, that's again in observing our dogs and copying their behavior, that curiosity that you mentioned, it's so key because what are they doing? Those first two steps all the time. They're trying to discover their world. They're being curious about it. They're observing it. And for us as men, and again, to reference Brene Brown again in Atlas of the Heart, she talks a lot about how we in our society, we treat our feelings like they're a nuisance, as opposed to telling us that this is information about our world. And again, these behaviors that the dog is showing are also they're information about our world. So when the dog is acting in a certain way, that's not just a nuisance. That's something that if you can pay attention to it, you can learn about your relationship and your relationship with the dog. And so every time we're getting that irritated feeling, let's discover, let's be curious. Where is this coming from? Is it because I'm just trying to push through my emotions? And as men, we're so often taught that. Just push past it, ignore it, and just get on with the job of your day. And when we're doing that, we're missing out on such important feedback that our bodies or environment are trying to give us.
Absolutely. Yeah, our emotions are there for a reason. They're
Mhm,
indicators that something is there, something we need to look at. It doesn't mean you need to address everything right on the spot, but it's information, just as you said. And our dogs are so sensitive. So think about how maybe the guy and his dog, there's a certain feeling, sensation when they're together, and they can relax and calm. And how does that dog act when someone else comes into the room?
mhm,
When your girlfriend shows up, why is your dog acting wonky?
mhm.
So the dogs pick up on so much, energetically, that we can't even fathom, right? So that, again, that's more information. It's an indicator that maybe you're actually feeling tense, but you're trying to put on your nice guy act. Um,
Yeah, and we've evolved to live alongside of animals. And, so this idea that we've used dogs in particular to keep us safe and to protect us for things we couldn't observe for millennia. So why not do that now? Instead of just having your dog be just kind of like an accoutrement to your apartment, something soft that you could pet, realize that it's giving you something. Well, I want to learn a little bit about SaveTwo. So what made you decide to start the nonprofit?
I want what I do to be more accessible. So, I have the coaching program, and that's great, but I want this to be accessible to anybody. So I created a platform where anybody can just pop on and take a look. So we're just getting going. So we're still adding things, and I'm going to be putting in a course on there people can take for free, and tons of resources. But it needs to be something that sounds good to you, right? I talked about resonance before, and what I do is so unknown
Hmm.
out there that it's tough to find people who would benefit from this. So I wanted to create this other thing and collaborate with like organizations like yours and Street Dog Coalition and No Kill Colorado, and I'm going to be trying to partner with a bunch of other shelters around just to get the word out there that there's more to life than just what we think it is. So yeah, we can learn how to help heal ourselves. We need help along the way, but we need to change something. I mean, turn on the news. The suicide rate for men is 4 to 1 that of women, right?
Hmm.
It's insane. So, wow, guys need some help.
Yeah, and I think that point of accessibility right now, mental health treatment is out of the realm of options for many people. If they don't have a certain kind of insurance, and even if they do, insurance might not cover the kind of person that they want to work with, and or there can be a giant waiting list. So nonprofits that help pair people with coaching, because a lot of times people think, well, again, like if I have a physical injury, my insurance might cover me going to a physical therapist to rehab, but if I'm doing somewhat okay, if I want to go to a personal trainer to make myself healthier, right now, the way our model is set up, insurance is not going to cover that. The same thing can be true with coaching, where we could say, okay, I know I could benefit from this emotional health coaching and getting me from where I am to where I would really like to be my optimal self. But without other means of covering that, it's out of reach for a lot of people. So I love the idea that of a nonprofit that can help people who could really benefit from this and reduce some of the stigma of getting some of this help and support. And I think animals do such a great job of reducing the stigma. You want to make any points on the stigma piece?
Yeah, that is massive, and it's still massive, right? Because I don't know how you were raised, but there's just things you didn't do, didn't talk about, didn't share, didn't show, and so there's this shame wrapped up in taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you were doing so great, then you would have a completely different life.
Hmm.
So I like using the term emotional confidence
Hmm.
because it takes mental health kind of off the table just because of that stigma. And I
Hmm.
seem to getting some traction with that. It's the same thing, right?
Hmm.
It's all the same thing, but yeah, the stigma is massive, and it was somebody else's insecurity.
Right. We don't think of it being odd at all to go to our accountant to get some tax advice or some business advice. We don't think of it odd to go to our lawyer. There are people who specialize in certain areas and they might know a little bit more about a certain area than we do. So why should we stigmatize the idea of, somebody who might be more in touch with their emotions or be a bit of a guide in doing these things? So it's so ridiculous that people are made to feel embarrassed that they don't know it all and they can't keep up with every concept in the universe. So.
Yeah, yeah. A phrase pops in when you say that. Would you rather be right or happy?
Yes. Yeah, I use that one quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the more that we can say that, and that actually we're going to be happier the more that we are seeking advice, sharing, accepting mentorship, and then it's setting up a model where we're able to give mentorship. And as men, if we are role modeling the idea that we need to be able to do it all on our own, that's an unhealthy model that we're passing on to our children. That the more interconnected we are, the more we're seeking advice. And the best thing you learn in graduate school for counseling is when in doubt, consult. If you're afraid to consult, you're probably doing something wrong. Well, we should be ready to consult about everything in life and bringing our animals along with us in that process because, again, they're the ones who sometimes really know us the best and connect. They can see through. Even if I'm saying I'm fine, your dog's not believing that BS. They can feel it right through. Now, something I want to ask you about that I don't know how best to help people prepare, but what you're working with men who obviously they have a bond with their animals. How do you help people in the process as their animals are getting older and they know death is coming? And again, you as a person who's been through multiple, like that transition of knowing like I'm going to eventually lose this incredible source of unconditional love. How do you help people through that fear and or in your any tips that you have of how you've gotten through that process of just losing this incredible emotional support?
Oh, that's loaded. That's huge. So grief is actually beautiful if viewed from the right lens. We in our society and culture here, we have this aversion to loss,
Hmm.
right? Whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, we lose a family member, we lose a pet, and we don't know how to deal with it. We don't know how to process that very well. There's so much available from that place because what that does is that can just rip you open emotionally, and it's not as a punishment.
Hmm.
It's actually as you said it earlier, a guide, right? It's like, okay, there's more stuff in here that we can look at and we can help heal. When my older brother died, I was literally, you know, crying, bawling my eyes out, writhing in pain. I had no idea what was going on, and it was all this stuff that I've been trying to get out for so long, right? I didn't get rid of it all at once,
Hmm.
but it was amazing. And that it showed me that, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to all of these things for so long. I mean, everything can be a little death, right? The loss of a job, a car accident,
Hmm.
whatever it is. It's a sense of loss, but it's also an indicator. It's a lesson that there's something more available from that place. So maybe reframe that for yourselves. And it's not going to look the same for me as it would for you, but that loss, that animal leaving, is not the end.
Hmm.
There's more there in those lessons from that loss to learn from. And it's beautiful. I mean, if you didn't love that dog, then you wouldn't hurt when they left.
Hmm.
Right. So how powerful is love? Don't get hung up in the grief, but be with it. Feel it.
And then do you encourage people to, and obviously each case is individual, but do you feel like, is it to focus on getting a new animal in a short amount of time, or is it just like figuring out, okay, how long do I need to feel like that respect and love for the animal that I've lost is there before bringing something new in? Or from your own experience, like, was it for you, was it important to get a new dog right away, or for you, where you're like, no, I need a year or two off from even having a pet, so because it's just there's a space that needs to be there.
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't tell people what they should or shouldn't do around that. They really have to feel into it.
Hmm.
And some right away, oh no, I need that. I need that. So they'll go right out and get another dog. And that's
Hmm.
okay. That's not for me to judge.
Hmm.
For myself, after Darby died, that was my last dog. Um, I needed to wait a little bit.
Hmm.
It was this other lesson in grief because what he had shown me after my brother died, I wanted to be in that. I wanted to feel it. And it sounds
Hmm.
kind of morbid to people, but it's true, right? It's like, okay, what else can I get from this? What else was he showing me? And every once in a while something will pop in. I'm like, that damn dog. Oh my God, right? So there's another little lesson there. Um, so this last time I really wanted to feel it.
Hmm.
And so it was, I can't remember how many months, maybe half a year. And then my partner, I kept looking at this one dog at a rescue locally,
Hmm.
and she was still there, and she was still there, and she was still there. And she wasn't going to go anywhere. She was a
Hmm.
Belgian Shepherd who had all kinds of issues. Nobody could get her trained. And she said, let's go look at that dog. And that was it, right? So then Indigo moved in. So, but that was my experience, and I realized just meeting this dog, like, whoa, we've got we've got a lot of work to do here. And I knew that that also meant myself, right? This is next level in
Hmm.
my own healing, dealing with this, this police dog
Hmm.
that that needed a lot of attention and love. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and I think, again, I'm dealing with a client right now who's still very it's been about a year and a half since they lost their dog, and they're excited. We were just talking yesterday about how they've got a couple tattoos that they're going to get on their hips of the image of their dog that they drew, and taking the lessons of that animal and saying, what would this, just like we've lost anyone, what would this, whether it's this person or this animal, what love would they want to be giving me right now? And then how do I take that and pass that through? And also, if you're not ready to have your own animal, saying, okay, sometimes it's spending time at your cousin's house who has an animal. Sometimes it's fostering. Sometimes it's going and volunteering because it might be a little too painful for a person for a period of time. But if you're used to getting, if again, if exercise is your thing and that's how you heal yourself, but you've just torn your knee, you have to figure out some other way to get that exercise. If animals are your thing, then you need to get some way to scratch that itch or balance things out. You said, in addition to animals, nature is a huge thing for you. Are there any other things that you find have been really effective for you in that balancing, in getting all of that, your mental health needs met?
Mm, yeah, love this question. So I start my day very early. People think I'm nuts. I get up at 3:30, right? I don't have to, but I do. This is where I pay myself first. So typically my partner gets up too, and we'll make coffee or tea, and we'll just sit quietly. We don't have to have a conversation. We can just sit and sip and hold hands,
Hmm.
and just be in that quiet moment, right? Most people think they always have to be talking about something and carrying on conversations, and it's not true. It's so hard to be quiet with someone, right?
Hmm.
And then after a while, we split off. She goes and does her thing, and then I do my thing. I might be meditating, maybe qigong, whatever it is. But that's me, and I'm paying myself first so that I can go into my day having already taken care of myself and nurtured myself, and bringing forth the power that I want to bring into my day.
Yeah, and I think that's, for so many people, again, they might have a negative association with meditation, with things like that, because they think, oh, I can't be still. But there are so many different ways to do this and to approach it. And sometimes, again, for me, just stroking Mariska while I'm trying, like that can be a way of being present. That can be a form of meditation. So for anybody who's listening to this, who's told themselves, well, I'm just bad at meditating, I just can't do it. We just maybe need to try. Then that's, I think that phrase mindfulness is partially a response to people having a negative mindset about meditation, because they're very similar type things. Just
Mhm.
being present in the moment, and whether we're using an animal, whether you're using nature, whether you're using just the taste of that coffee, can be a great way to do that.
Absolutely. And walking your dog can be a meditation,
Hmm.
right? You don't have to sit on a pillow in the dark staring at a candle or whatever it is. Anytime in nature or even just in the house, go to the front window where your dog likes looking at the squirrels and just stand there and look at the squirrels with your dog.
Hmm.
That can be a form of meditation, but put your phone down, turn off the TV, and just spend some time paying attention to what your dog's paying attention to. Like when you walk your dog, they stop and sniff. Take a look. What are they sniffing? You don't have to get down on all fours and sniff it too, but get curious, right? Like, oh yeah, what do you got there? You're writing a novel over here. Yeah, anything can be a meditation. That's another thing. It's got such a negative connotation for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be this Zen Buddhist thing.
Hmm. Are there any major misconceptions or surprises that your clients are finding that they weren't expecting, but then when they start coming and working with you and doing this coaching with the dog present, so anything that either oh, I thought it was going to be like this and it turns out like this, or any other, just, something that you're hearing from them a lot of, like, yeah, the thing that caught me off guard was, so anything like that?
Yeah, I get a lot of that. So as people start to open a little more, I get into the energetic nature of things and start to help them understand and feel energy that's around them, energy from their dog, the energy of the sun. We don't actually pay attention to that. Maybe we feel warmth and we let it go. There's just so much more to everything that's around us. And I get a lot of, huh, really? And then next thing you know, it's like, wow, that's amazing.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's something else. I mean, what the dogs can pick up from us and what they try and show us all the time, the communication piece is probably the most powerful. Not my communication, it's the communication with their dog.
Hmm.
Once that opens up into this kind of maybe next level, yeah, there's no limits.
5 years from now, if everything with SaveTwo is going perfectly, how would the organization look? Would you be just having the opportunity to offer services to everyone around, Fort Collins areas? Would you guys expand? What's your dream for the organization?
I would love for this to expand into other cities. So I'm starting locally, and then I want to push this out statewide, and then see where it goes from there. Um, excuse me, Street Dog Coalition started here in Fort Collins. He's in over 60 cities now.
Hmm.
So he's got this beautiful model where veterinarians help take care of animals, and then they partner with other organizations to help the people as well. It's fantastic. I would love to see that happen.
Have you ever thought about training other coaches or therapists or whatnot to bring some of what you do into their practice?
Um, Not much, not much. But if I want to expand, that's obviously what's going to need to happen. So I've met with some resistance. Trying to talk with some therapists locally about this model. I don't know if it's a scarcity thing or what it's about, but yeah, I would be totally open to that. That would be amazing.
Well, I think there's so many people, and what I find in writing letters for Pause for Patrick, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who have a fear of liability or of going out of anything that's been previously researched 10,000 times. And yet, they will, again, even if they're not an exercise expert, they'll say, "Hey, I know it's a good idea for you to go for a walk." And so, I think it's just giving people the confidence and the trust, and even these professionals to know that this is not anything that's really out of the norm of what it's something that's similar to what you're currently doing in some form, in some format. It's kind of like
Mhm.
when you were talking about energy. So many people, when people start to bring up the idea of energy work, they think, well, feels so foreign. But then I'll say to them, well, have you ever been to a concert and everybody's singing the same song at the same time? And it's
Yeah,
like once we connect something to something that someone is already familiar with, then they realize, oh, that's not so out of the realm of what I'm comfortable with. But it's until it's getting to that point that can be a little bit hard. And so that's why I hope
absolutely.
organizations like yours and Pause for Patrick and Street Dog Coalition and whatnot, we can all bring in the people who want to bring the power of animals into our health. We just again need to continue to work together to that end.
Absolutely. I mean, bring the energy piece back real quick. Think about two people in your life.
Hmm.
Maybe at work, it's Ed in accounting. When you see that guy, you just go, "Oh, God, I can't fucking stand this guy." Stop yourself. What? That's energy, right? You're feeling this thing in there. And it's not emotions are energy. Now think about like the favorite person in your life or your dog. How do you feel when they walk into the room? Right? That's energy. It's that simple. It's really
Hmm.
that simple.
Right. Or even and again, I was just talking yesterday to a client about like they went on a date and they got the ick. Well, what is that but energy? What is that? But or when we talk about chemistry in dating, these are just
Yeah.
different words for the same thing. They're things that we, as science has a hard time quantifying. But if anybody who's ever been on a date or anybody listening to this, you know that there are people who that you share the right kind of energy with, and there's people that you don't. And when it's not there, no matter how that person looks on paper, it's not going to work out. And so finding those reasons and how we can improve the energy connection between whether it's boss and person, whether it's a family dynamic. So again, when we're the work that you're doing, helping people to observe it, to recognize it, and to tap into it, as opposed to just, well, this shouldn't matter because I can't quantify it. How's that working for you? So yeah.
Exactly.
Well, how should people? Oh, I wanted to ask you before. Men's work is obviously your main focus, but if there were a woman who's like, I've got this bond with my animal, and I know I would do better in counseling if I could, be tapping into that. Would you also be open to working with women, or are you pretty much specifically focused on men?
Um, I want to mainly focus on men, but I won't turn anybody away who asks me for help.
Hmm.
So I think men have a lot more obstacles to overcome to be able to open that door a little farther.
Hmm.
But if someone needs help, absolutely. I will not turn anybody away.
Yeah, and our culture, everybody, men, women, gender non-binary, whoever, they all absorb a lot of the masculine culture that we're putting down on people. Again, we hear people saying to little girls or to gender non-binary people, you need to man up, and so they internalize a lot of these same messages, unfortunately. And in order to be successful, so often that they've kind of copied these misogynistic ideas. And so again, everyone can start to unpack that. But as you said before, there is such a crisis in men's mental health that I'm so glad you're doing your work there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Well,
thank you. Thank you. And I'm still working on my own things, my own issues and demons, whatever you want to call them. So this isn't like a one and done. I want to
mhm,
set this expectation for people that you don't just take a magic pill. For some people, this could be a lifelong journey.
mhm. Where else, like you've written a book. Would you like to talk about that at all, or?
Yeah, so I've written one, co-authored another one, and I'm working on two more.
Okay.
I don't have enough time to do anything else, right? So I wrote the book "Let Your Dog Lead" as an invitation to just create this sense of curiosity around all these emotions and these things that we go through our day and we just take for granted. We think we have to feel that way because that's just how we feel.
Mhm.
So that's yeah, that was like my first foray into expressing myself in this fashion. So it's fun. It's a short read. It's easy, and the way it's written is these little spits, maybe up to 5 pages or just a paragraph,
Mhm.
right? It's just to get that point across. So yeah, it's pretty cool actually.
And the main focus of that is more, again, the same type of theme of like learning about yourself through learning about your relationship with your dog, or is it more focused on the dog person relationship?
Well, it's both. It's
Mhm.
both,
Okay.
I would say.
Okay. Where else should people go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. www.dogsandmen.com. There it takes to a link tree, and there's tons of other shows, podcasts, radio interviews, things that I've been on. There's also two copies of books of mine, the one I authored and the one I co-authored for free. Download PDF, take it. um, this is not to make money. I want to
Mhm.
just get out there and help people because nobody goes alone. We have this army of one mentality here in this country, but nobody actually got here by themselves, right? We
Mhm.
like to think that we're self-sufficient. Well, your mom was wiping your butt for a long time, right?
Mhm.
Before you grew up. So everybody goes together. Everybody does stuff together, even though they want to think that they're self-sufficient. So um, I just want to extend that because so many people have helped me on my path.
Well, and again, and in every conversation we've had before recording, whatever else, like there's the consistent theme of that comes across from you, that you are doing this for all the right reasons. It's about connection. It's about paying back. It's about helping people to find the peace and connection that you've found and sharing that on. And so that's why I love the spirit that you're coming to this with. And I will put a link to that, and then also SaveTwo.org should people go to if they want to find out more about the nonprofit.
Yep, the site is up. Again, we're just getting started, so there's not much there, but yeah, click around.
Well, are there any other messages that you want to share with the people who are listening today, just about, again, the opportunities that they have of connecting in with their animal and learning from themselves from that communication experience?
Yeah, slow down a little bit. Give yourself the tiniest of breaks when you're feeling just absolutely crappy. And realize that you've made it this far, regardless of what has happened in your life. You're still here, right? And there's a reason for that. So give yourself a tiny little break and just slow down and begin to allow yourself to feel a little deeper.
Right. Take that lesson that the dog is giving you. They're not necessarily they're in a rush when they find something that's really stimulating to them, but all the rest of the time, they're allowing themselves to observe.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we really appreciate it. And if you listeners have questions for Mariska or me, remember, email us at dmagler@lcsw@gmail.com. And until we speak again, do whatever it takes to get you through this world. And remember, you are just not allowed to die.